Attention! Please use extreme caution when using unrecommended materials in a laser cutter and engraver. Wear a respirator and have a well-ventilated area. Failure to do so can result in permanent harm to respiratory organs, cause cancer, or death to the user. Seek professional advice if you have additional questions. Experiment at your own risk. Blick Ready Cut Plate. Speedball, Speedy Carve Pink. Speedball, Old Speedy Cut Cream. Blick Unmounted Lino Cut Battleship Gray. Orange stamp material from Amazon. I did a total of 6 passes, each with a different speed and power for engraving to figure out what works best. Ready Cut Plate 4th pass was probably the best. Speedy Carve Pink between 3 and 4 was the best passes, and the old Speedy Cut Cream didn't hold up so well. The lino cut was the best by far to laser because it was dense and held its shape really well, as you can tell. Although we found out what we can do by engraving, we needed to know how deep we can cut and how fast, and this allowed me to figure out how much power was needed and how fast it would have to go in order to cut through the lino cut pieces. So this orange material is actually made for the laser. This is actually stamping material. It's kind of cushy like stamping material, but it doesn't have a backing, so you're gonna have to think about what you're gonna use for backing. You can either 3D print it or make something out of wood. It runs in a laser just fine, and it's pretty safe for the laser as well, if you're thinking about going that direction. Because the orange material is actually made for the laser, it posed no problem when cutting through it. It allowed a clean cut and good finish on both sides of the cut. Once it's finished, it has a lot of soot and smoke residue on there. I need to clean it off before I could do anything else with it after. So I clean it off and then I'll proceed to matching it with a wooden piece. The wooden backer has the same design as the stamp so that it can give me a registration mark wherever I kind of go on the piece of paper later on. It's time to begin gluing. To make sure I am correct on the orientation, I flip them around to figure out if they are. For this, it doesn't matter too much, but it's good to check. I take some epoxy glue and I mix them 1 part A and 1 part B together, the hardener and the liquid, to make sure I have an even amount, and then I'll mix them together and place them in between the stamp and the backer. This will allow for a 5-minute cure, and it's a lot quicker because I don't have any super glue around, but this should work just fine. Something to keep in mind would be what kind of epoxy or adhesive you will be using, because rubber sometimes doesn't like to be stuck onto certain adhesives. I could probably experiment with rubber cement in the future, but for now, epoxy will work just fine. Now we gotta clip on all the clamps. I'm using just regular clothespins to do it, and it should be fine. Let it sit and cure, and then here it is, my first DIY stamp made just in approximately 3 hours at most. Now what we'll have to do is we'll have to try it and see if it works. So I bust out the paper and ink pad. I didn't realize that the ink pad would probably be dry. I had to re-ink it and give it a go and see if it would actually work. So I actually do this a couple times because my ink pad is really old. If you can tell, they don't actually make that anymore probably. So I probably have to get new ink pads one of these days. If you can see, it didn't work the first time, so we're gonna try to do it 2 more times and see if I can actually get this stamp to work. It might be because of the level of detail that I want it to portray onto the piece of paper that is hindering it, but I wanted to try something really detailed to see how far I could go before it starts losing its integrity of holding its shape. After the 3rd try, I decided I needed to do something a little bit more simpler. So I used a piece of EVA foam that was about 1/8 inch thick, and I lasered it so that this can be a form of a backer to give it a little bit more cushion between the stamp and the backer. This will allow it to be a little bit more cushy and have a little bit of give in order to push down a little bit harder. That one didn't go all the way through, so I wanted to try what my settings would be correctly before moving forward. And for this next one, I actually succeeded in finding the correct settings. I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna say, more gluing? What? Yes, more gluing is necessary. I had to make something a little bit thicker because on the other one, I didn't have anything to grab onto in order to push it downward or give a little bit more downward force. After it's cured, take it off, and then we can start to glue the EVA foam onto the piece of wood that will be our backer, and then the EVA foam in between that, which will be kind of our cushion, our give, and then the foam and the stamp will be glued together as so. This will allow me to push down harder, and the foam would actually act as a kind of a leveler to help level everything out when the surface that I'm stamping onto is actually not leveled. So I'm hoping it works with this. Let's give it a try. So I proceeded to inking the stamp to make sure I had enough ink on there. Stamping the first time felt really good because the EVA foam had just that little give that I needed in order to flatten everything out with an equal surface area on the bottom, allowing for more detail and more evenness for the ink to make all the details show up. In conclusion, the best material to use in the Glowforge is the orange stamp material from Amazon. The reasons why: the material has enough give to itself when pushed down with downward pressure for a stamp with low detail design. It just needs a backer that will allow equal surface pressure when pushing flat against the marking material of choice. It holds its shape and cleans up neatly. It's cost effective and it doesn't cost much for a square foot of material. This has allowed for multiple designs to be created with just one sheet. There are other sizes offered as well. The cons: high detailed designs on this stamp will need additional pressure for it to show up. Rubber stinks and can be harmful, so be sure to clean the machine after if necessary. The most rigid material to use for stamp making is the Lino Cut Battleship Gray. Lino Cut holds true to its shape and density. Though it's not optimal for stamp making, it has the potential for creating multicolored prints by registration marks. You can do this in the Glowforge by creating maybe a template. So I will hopefully do an experiment in the future when I can find a good way to create downward pressure on the Lino Cut material to get the best details. The other materials are great to use as well, but just not for the laser. Most likely, it will take some time in getting used to these materials and figuring out what is the best way to apply them to my creator skills. I hope you enjoyed this experiment, and please like, subscribe, and ring the bell for future notifications. Thank you for watching. Stay awesome.